On April 12, 2024, Oman hosted the first direct talks between Iran and the United States in 7 years. This event marked an unexpected shift in a decades-long standoff that has repeatedly pushed the world to the brink of a major conflict. Described by both sides as constructive, the negotiations unfolded against a backdrop of Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear program and a Middle East engulfed in chaos. The war in Gaza, clashes in Lebanon, Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, and Israel's military strikes on Iranian soil. Why did Washington and Tehran choose to engage now? What compromises are possible? And can this dialogue mitigate the threat of a global crisis? From the nuclear deal to maximum pressure. To grasp the significance of these talks, we must revisit 2015, when Iran and the P5+1, the US, Russia, China, the UK, France, and Germany, signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. Under the deal, Tehran agreed to curb its nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions relief. However, in 2018, the Trump administration unilaterally withdrew from the agreement, calling it the worst deal ever, and reimposed crippling sanctions on Iran. Tehran's response was swift. By 2024, Iran had escalated uranium enrichment to 60% purity. 3 to 5% is needed for nuclear power plants. 90% for weapons. Increased its stockpile of low-enriched uranium 18-fold, and restricted access for International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA inspectors. Simultaneously, Iran expanded support for proxy groups across the region, from Hezbollah in Lebanon to the Houthis in Yemen, heightening tensions with Israel and Saudi Arabia. The Biden administration, entering office in 2021, attempted to revive the JCPOA, but negotiations in Vienna stalled. Now, with Donald Trump's return to the White House in 2025, tensions have reached a boiling point. The U.S. president has repeatedly vowed to never let Iran obtain a nuclear bomb, threatening military action if diplomacy fails. Oman as a bridge between adversaries. The negotiations in Muscat, Oman's capital, were made possible by the mediation of this neutral Gulf state, which has long served as a quiet diplomat in the Middle East. Oman previously facilitated the release of American detainees in Iran and secret talks that led to the 2015 nuclear deal. According to Reuters sources, the April 12th meeting lasted over 2.5 hours and followed an indirect format. Iranian and U.S. delegations were seated in separate rooms, with messages relayed via Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi. Only at the end did the heads of delegations, Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi and Trump's Middle East envoy Stephen Witkoff, briefly interact in the presence of their Omani counterpart. Key discussion topics. Number 1. Nuclear program. The U.S. demands a freeze on uranium enrichment at 60% and full IAEA access. Iran insists on phased sanctions relief as a precondition for concessions. Number 2. Regional security. Washington seeks an end to Tehran's support for Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Palestinian factions. Iran demands guarantees of non-interference in regional affairs. Number 3. Prisoner exchange. A potential deal to free U.S. citizens detained in Iran in exchange for unlocking Iranian assets abroad. Araqchi stated that the sides were close to establishing a basis for negotiations, while the White House called the dialogue a step forward. However, as Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghaei noted, this is just the beginning, and the sides remain far apart. Positions. Skepticism versus pragmatism, Iran. Domestically, the talks are contentious. Reformists see them as a chance to end isolation, but conservatives, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, fear capitulation to the enemy. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, however, granted Araqchi full authority to negotiate, signaling Tehran's seriousness. Iran's narrative. Sanctions are the main obstacle. If the U.S. wants dialogue, it must start by lifting them. United States. Trump, known for unpredictability, balances pressure from Israel, which advocates military action, with a desire to avoid war ahead of the 2024 elections. The administration is pushing for a short-term deal, a temporary nuclear freeze in exchange for partial sanctions relief. Expert assessments. Ali Vez, Tehran-based analyst. Iranians remember Trump tearing up the JCPOA. They want guarantees history won't repeat, but Trump isn't inclined to offer them. Mark Fitzpatrick, former U.S. State Department official. A deal is possible, but it will be fragile. No one wants war, but there's no trust. Regional context, a Middle East in flames. The talks unfolded against unprecedented escalation. Gaza war. Following Hamas's October 7, 2023, attacks, Israel launched a devastating offensive, killing tens of thousands of Palestinians. Iran, a Hamas backer, has ramped up anti-Israel rhetoric. Lebanon, Hezbollah and Israel exchange daily strikes, risking all-out war. Yemen, Houthi attacks on Red Sea, shipping threaten global trade. Syria and Iraq, Iran-backed militias target U.S. bases. In this context, even a limited U.S.-Iran agreement could act as a pressure valve. Yet, as political analyst Karin von Hippel warns, if talks collapse, the region will be one step from catastrophe.
I want them not to have a nuclear weapon. I want Iran to be a wonderful, great, happy country. But they can't have a nuclear weapon. And we're negotiating with them. On Saturday, we have a big meeting with them.
What do you hope to come from that?
And right now, we have a meeting with President Putin as we speak. There's a meeting going on right now. But with Iran, I want them to flourish, but they can't have a nuclear weapon.
What's next? Scenarios and risks. Optimistic scenario. The sides agree to a mini-deal. Iran freezes uranium enrichment at 60%, the U.S. unfreezes some assets, up to $10 billion, and prisoners are exchanged. This paves the way for broader dialogue. Pessimistic scenario. Talks collapse amid mutual accusations. Trump tightens sanctions to Project Strength. Iran exits the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, and accelerates its nuclear program. Israel strikes Iranian facilities, triggering regional war. External players' roles. Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu has vowed to never let the West strike a deal with a terror regime. Provocations to derail talks are possible. Russia and China support dialogue but fear. U.S.-Iran rapprochement could weaken their influence. Gulf states, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, despite normalizing ties with Israel, seek stability but distrust Tehran. Conclusion. A chance for peace or a temporary truce? The Oman talks represent an attempt to halt a slide toward war that could obliterate the Middle East's fragile stability. Yet the path to agreement is fraught. Decades of hostility, mutual distrust, and domestic opposition in both nations. Even a temporary compromise is unlikely to resolve deeper issues. But in a world where the alternative could be apocalyptic, the mere fact of dialogue offers cautious hope. As Russian diplomat Mikhail Ulyanov remarked, "It's better to talk than to shoot, even if the conversation is difficult." The world now awaits the next round on April 20th. The stakes could not be higher.